Pokémon distributions. Love them or hate them, they definitely happen. Why, yes, a genius idea of giving out Pokémon to players after the game has been released. And while there are several different types and methods of distributions, one that surprisingly continues to persist is code card distributions, as we've been reminded with this past weekend. These really took off during Pokémon 6th generation. Up until that point, most distributions had been done either by connecting through a link cable or through wireless communications to a dedicated distribution cartridge. Along with these often came additional events unlocked in the game. While we often look back at these with nostalgia, they did have some flaws. The main one being that they required players to attend dedicated events or physically be in a specific location in order to obtain them. With the introduction of the Nintendo 3DS, internet connectivity was a big thing, so now it became easier to obtain mystery gifts through the internet, whether it be a timed event or required a code. And that brings us to the code cards. Pieces of cardboard with a unique scratch-off code on the back that would allow you to obtain something cool in your Pokemon game. I think a big reason Pokemon shifted over to these was because there was an inherent liability in sending physical distribution cartridges to stores. But hop on eBay and you'll see that they're still being rotated in the secondary market, they were not destroyed. There was also the cost involved with actually producing them and shipping them, so it makes more sense to generate a bunch of codes and print them on cards that you could send to stores with no worries. But in the end, this still required players to physically go to whatever store is hosting these events. And here in the US, most of the time, that was GameStop. Because these were actual cards being produced, I ended up keeping a lot of them for my collection because, like, why not? When I was young and dumb, it felt cool walking over to GameStop to get whatever fancy new Pokemon there was. And continuing the legacy of mythical Pokemon being event only, we got Diancie and Volcanion through these methods originally. Do not ask about Hoopa, trust me, you do not want to know. One that I remember vividly from this era was the shiny Gengar. This was when Gengar could Mega Evolve, which had a beautiful ghostly white color. And it wasn't just that this was a shiny Pokemon, but the fact that it was distributed in October and even alongside a Gengar themed product. I also have this one for the version exclusive Megastones of Heracross and Pinsir, but this time available in the opposite games. This was one of the first times we would start seeing items like this as the focus of the code cards, but at least this one solved the issue of version exclusivity. This was also when we would start seeing code cards produced for regular Pokemon like Dragonite, not a legendary, mythical, or a shiny, just a regular Dragonite. Sure, it's battle ready with its ability, moves, and item, but being held a year after the release of the game it was intended for, did anybody really need a Dragonite at that point? I think because now distributions were handled through cards like this, it made it a lot easier to just make anything into a code and print it out. Sure, this could have been a code they posted online so everyone could download it without leaving their house, but Nintendo and GameStop want to continue their relationship to keep consumers shopping at their stores for their products. I know it sounds like I'm complaining about a free Dragonite, but trust me, this is the beginning of the end. Though the next set of distributions would be in celebration of Pokemon's 20th anniversary, which would see a different mythical Pokemon being given away each month. The methods for these varied depending on the Pokemon, but a handful were done as physical code cards. In general, this was a good way for a year-long event to let players receive some of these Pokemon that they might have missed out on originally. But then we move on to Pokemon Sun and Moon, where these got a bit weird. So first of all, the code card distributions that stand out are things like Dusk Lycanroc and Salazzle. Again, they're holding useful items and no good moves, but they're still easily obtainable in the base game. These two specifically might take a little longer considering the fact that they're Pokemon with specific evolution requirements, but these events took place in 2017. That's not even to mention the bottle cap distribution. Yes, bottle caps are useful items, but is it really necessary to print these out and pay for the shipping to GameStop? Just give them out through the internet, and this was the absolute low point. These are all optional things, so fans aren't obligated to get them. Also, I'm sure somebody appreciated these free Pokemon and items, and I mean, I sure got some of these Pokemon, but sometimes you just have to wonder what the point is. Though on the upside, it's not like these were the only distributions to happen for the Pokemon Sun and Moon generation, just some of the first. Because not long after that, we would get things like Shiny Silvally, which itself came holding a golden bottle cap. And then when we moved into Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, we even got things like Shiny Poipole, among others. Sadly, this is kind of the point where I fell off being diligent in keeping up with these and seeking out the code cards. Though going into the next year, we had the Legendary Promotion, which would have several legendary Pokemon as the focus of distributions. Zygarde was even shiny, and basically every Pokemon came holding a golden bottle cap as an item. Code card events as a whole would also start to dwindle as Pokemon Pass was started up, and then swiftly shoved into the back of the closet and never talked about ever again. And we also saw email and newsletter codes start to take over. Sword and Shield seemed to bring back the physical code cards with things like Shiny Zacian and Zamazenta, as well as mythical Pokemon like Genesect, Volcanion, and Marshadow as a way to wrap up Generation 8, by ensuring these older special Pokemon were still in rotation. And now finally we've made it into Generation 9, and I'm honestly surprised they're still doing code cards. While the recent Lechonk one can seem a little underwhelming, I think we should keep in mind that it's still the beginning of the generation, and isn't out of the ordinary considering the history we literally just looked at. I mean, seriously, bottle caps. I guess my surprise mostly comes from the fact that we haven't fully moved on from using cardboard, when it feels like there's a Wi-Fi gift available in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet every other week. But when you really look at this particular Flying Terra-type Lechonk in context, it makes a little more sense. It wasn't just a distribution for a random funny little Pokemon, it was also the release of a brand new core booster set for the trading card game, and there was even a promo card available as well. And when it comes to owning all this cardboard, that's really nothing out of the ordinary for a Pokemon fan. Though having code cards that span 4 generations, I really wish they were given a standard size for the entire run. During Generation 6 and 7, they were basically the same size. It all looks nice, isn't too big, and the later ones are a nicer quality. But randomly, Volcanion is just bigger for no reason. From 2018 onward, yes, they all were consistently the same size, but they're just too big. They're like the size of a postcard, as if I would actually want to send a postcard in the present day. But when it comes down to it, these are ultimately unnecessary in the age of the internet. Code cards are only one part of the whole Pokemon distribution rabbit hole, but are also some of the most baffling yet also the most memorable for me personally. I feel like the postcard comparison is the most appropriate because they're like souvenirs or memories of when you were a Pokemon fan during the time these came from. As much as I don't want to fall into the whole consumerism culture, I still am a Pokemon fan, and I kind of like just walking into GameStop and seeing all of the Pokemon knickknacks that they have in stock. A good amount of these code cards I got when I would walk to GameStop after school, and it would be an adventure all on its own. A lot of them I got alongside friends while we were just hanging out, and some of them just had the right vibes. And now that I'm a cool PokeTuber who gets to spend a Friday out buying Pokemon cards to open on my channel, there's something nice about still receiving a postcard with a goofy little pig on the front to remember my journey. So let me know what you think about Pokemon code card distributions. Which did you get? Which are your favorites? And which ones do you wish you didn't miss? With the new generation firmly in place and on its way into the future, I'm ready to make even more memories. Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators, Cheeseburger Lasers, Gavnuts, Justin R, Cosmo Zero, Michaela, Mr. Pig Puncher, Phantom Pyro, Quago, Volity, and Pastel Blood. If you would like to support, get your name shouted out here as well as access to emotes and comments, live streams, and some early videos, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter as well, but anyway, this has been GatorEX, and I'll catch you all later.
Get Jirachi at GameStop. Take your Nintendo DS system and your Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, or Pokemon Platinum version game to GameStop for a free character distribution. And if you buy the new Pokemon Heart Gold or Soul Silver version games, you can trade Jirachi to either and discover a Pokewalker surprise. Get it today only at GameStop. Power to the players. Rated E for everyone.